Do you ever think, Connor, about how my time to beat Sephiroth is better than yours? Do you ever just sit back and just know that
the thing
I'll just
is,
always have that on top of you now?
The thing is, I am secure enough with myself to know that I don't need to battle you on this topic. And much less need to try and beat you, because I could have tried to get a better time than you, and I didn't. Didn't even try.
But could you have gotten it, though?
Oh, I easily could have.
I don't know.
If I could have found... guess what I would have done?
Because I'm just that much better than you, know?
Maybe if I got better at spiking, I'd be able to beat you, know.
I didn't spike him.
What'd you do?
I just prevented him from getting back to the stage.
That's how everyone either spiked him or prevented him from getting back to the stage. There's no in between.
If you won that stamina fight, hats off to you, bro, because that shit's crazy.
I won that stamina fight. No commendation.
You didn't win it.
I did.
I don't believe you. I don't believe you.
Dude.
What is this you sent me?
These
are Uncharted movie shots? What is this?
Was that even an opening?
What is this? Wait, what is this?
What is what?
These are shots from the new Uncharted movie?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
A cross?
That's all. A cross? What I assume is Tom Holland's hand sticking a cross into a hole?
Could be the amazing casting for Sully, for Mark Wahlberg.
Key thing? No, that's a young hand right there. That's a Tom Holland hand. You're gonna make Sully put the key into the thing? No, that's a Nathan Drake move to put the key into the thing. All right, cool. So the set designer knows what they're doing.
Yeah,
fantastic.
I mean, it seems kind of weird that they did that. I get they could be doing it because they're just like, well, we got to advertise our movie, let people know it's coming out. But they kind of already did that during the Game Awards, so it seems
we know your movie is coming out.
Yeah, it's like we're assured enough to know it's happening.
Get back to us when you have a trailer. That's when we're going to start judging.
That could have been like a little teaser for a trailer that's going to be released.
Oh, and in the next 24 hours or something will come out.
I don't even go that far, but maybe like within the week.
Within the week,
yeah.
By the time people hear this, or even before we can even get back to these mics, we might hear something.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is no one's really seen. I mean, you didn't see these, so that's kind of a good.
I didn't,
standard.
But I haven't been on Twitter that much today. I woke up 2 hours ago, so.
Okay, fair enough.
Anyways, Connor, should we just jump into it?
We should jump right into it.
All right. Well, what's poppin', players? Welcome back to the Two Penny Gamescast, episode 24. I am your host, Tavin Bothel, here with my good friend and co-host who's scrambling for his notes, Connor Elliott. Say hi to the people, Connor.
First of all, it's a list. Hi.
It is indeed a list. You can get this show every Monday at 8 a.m. Spotify, SoundCloud, and YouTube. We're working on the Apples and the Googles. The general idea of this show is that every week, me and Connor come to you with two topics, two pennies, if you will, of gaming industry news, and give you our 2 cents on them. But this week, however, news media is still pretty much shut down. Outside of Cyberpunk actually getting sued, there's really nothing else to talk about.
Mm-hmm. And we saw that coming.
Yeah, and we talked about that a few weeks ago, the potential for it, and yeah, it happened. Excuse me. So, last week, we gave you predictions for how next gen might go, or next year might go, rather. This week, we are going to give you our top 10 games of 2020. Now, the way this is going to go is we pretty much just listed them, I believe, Connor, in just order of favorites. So
1 through 10.
1 through 10. Well, what are our favorite games? I will say, for 10 through 4, if there's any overlap between our lists, we're going to talk about it at the same time. However, if there is overlap, let's say Connor's number 8 is my number 2 game, for example, I'm going to withhold my opinions and my talkings of that game until we get to that number 2 spot, just to make those top 3 a little more special.
Yeah, give them a little bit more zing.
Yeah, give them a little more zing. So, Connor, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start us off.
Now, do you have any honorable mentions? Because I heard.
I do have honorable mentions. Thank you for reminding me. Quick honorable mentions for games that I played this year that either didn't come out this year or just didn't quite make the cut. I've got an honorable mention for Among Us. Among Us is a fantastic party game, online party game that hit in a perfect time, or caught popularity in the perfect time. It came out in 2018 initially. And it might be the most fun I've had this year playing a video game, is in Among Us.
Very fun game.
Just the constant suspicions of your friends of like, who killed him? Who killed Connor? Who killed Connor in Electric? It was Phil. Get him out of here.
Oh, it's not Phil. It's
not Phil. Yeah, we fucked up. Damn it. We lost. Just an absolute blast. Pretty much every time I've ever played it.
Surprisingly, a game where if you get out, you're still having fun because you're having to see, who killed you.
Yeah, and
you're just seeing
you're just watching, guys. You're just watching the train of logic break down or them catch on, and it's exciting both ways. If you're like, fuck, yep, Phil just lied his way out of this. Yeah, he's gonna win.
Yeah.
Or, oh damn, Connor got him in the lie. He's got him. We're going, boys.
But then you have twists and turns from that. Even Glenn will come in and say, well, actually, I think I saw Michael going in. No.
So just a great little twist on that type of asymmetrical team based game, I guess you want to call it, if you could call it that. And 2020 was the year for Among Us, I think. And I don't know if there's a game that was talked about more than Among Us this year. Maybe Fall Guys, but I don't know. Fall Guys, another honorable mention I want to give out.
Okay. Now, I do have to say something about Among Us real quick.
Go ahead.
I don't have it in my honorable mentions, but all of a sudden...
Do you have honorable mentions?
I do. I have 3.
Oh, we haven't talked about it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll jump to you then.
Yeah, let me just do my
after
thing
your
first.
Among Us talk.
Yeah, because Among Us was not going to be on there. My main reason for it not being on the list was because it came out in 2018, and me personally, I couldn't do that for a game that came out outside of 2020.
All games on the official top 10s are games that came out this year.
Yes. Now, I decided I'm going to, even though this means nothing, because it's just an honorable mention, I'm going to replace Among Us I'm going to make that the honorable mention, as opposed to one of my other honorable mentions, which is Cyberpunk 2077. I was really... Okay. I wanted to put it on my top 10 list at number 10, because I was thinking, well, it has all these problems, and it's plagued with all these issues, but at the core, it's a good game. But due to the, surprisingly, having 9 or 10 other games to talk about that I actually played this year, I decided those actually did what they set out to do, for better or for worse, and I had to put those, prioritize those over Cyberpunk 2077, so I couldn't, in my own good faith, give that an honorable mention at all. Since you just brought up Among Us, since I might as well,
so Cyberpunk,
there.
Cool.
Yeah,
fair enough. Next, I want to talk about Fall Guys. Fall Guys is great fun. I think its only problem is that its gimmick didn't capture my attention for long enough to make it to my top 10 this year. However, I did find it just a joyous time, and it hit at the perfect time in which everything was just kind of, we were all self-isolated and kind of bored out of our minds and just sitting in our houses alone, and to just have this nice little party game pop up and we can just run around and have fun and be goofy for a few minutes. I thought, just a good old time. Just a good old time, Fall Guys. Connor.
One of the games I didn't play, actually.
Yeah.
But
you got another honorable mention?
I do. It's Persona 5 Royal. So
oh, okay.
The reason why it's an honorable mention is because I played Persona 5 back when it came out. One of my favorite games I've ever played. Persona 5 Royal obviously has some additions to that game, specifically 2 more characters and another dungeon, another palace. So I would, if I had reached those points, put them on my list, but I didn't. So the parts of the game that I played, because I still haven't beaten the game, were ones that I've already done in the past. So it pretty much was no different from Persona 5. So for that reason alone, I decided not to put it on my list.
Yeah. I'll say Persona 5 Royal didn't make it into my top 10 this year. Mostly because I don't see the Royal version as enough content to justify a whole game slot. It just feels like a really solid expansion. Even though I haven't even experienced that dungeon, because you can get locked out of it if you don't talk to those new characters enough. Which I made the mistake of not talking to one of them enough. So basically, I just played Persona 5 for the first time this year. Great game, fantastic game, a lot of fun.
Yeah, it just seems like a lot of the reason why some of these games are not on the list and remain in honorable mentions are kind of technicalities.
Yeah, but for the most part, yeah. My final honorable mention I want to talk about is Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. I played it for the first time this year. I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I tried playing it on console a few years ago, and it's just not the way to play that game. And on PC, it is super solid. Super, or I should say just with a mouse and keyboard, the layout for how the buttons work and et cetera, just super solid. I think it still remains to be the best Star Wars game ever, probably. And I just adored it for everything it did. I grew to love its characters so much. I think it's desperately in need of a remake. I don't know how you would do that, and because Disney likes to make everything canon now, so I don't know how you would do that and make it canon and so forth. You probably could, but I don't know. I don't remember all the smaller details of like lore shit that could or could not be canonized. But oh my god, what a fantastic game, and just really a game that deserves to be held up as high as it is.
Now, unless I'm missing something, the reason why that's not on your list is because it didn't come out this year.
Yeah, it's old.
You just played it this year.
Yeah, I just played it this year.
I was thinking in my mind, did they come out with like a new version this year?
No, it's just old.
Okay.
It's just old, and I happen to play it.
Well, the other honorable mention that I have, my final one, is Baldur's Gate. Baldur's Gate 3.
Oh, okay.
Once again, another technicality. I didn't want to put it on my list because the game isn't complete. It's early access. So, it's a game that is really fun to play with friends because you can play it as a multiplayer game. It pays a lot of homage to Dungeons and Dragons, so cool. it fulfills that purpose pretty well. The fact that a lot of the elements of the game are not fully there yet, such as classes and races potentially, means that even if it was, a full game, which obviously it's not, I may not have put it on my list anyway, but we're probably going to see some updates as, months come out. And, hopefully the final product is good, and I'll be able to put it on my Game of the Year list, whatever year it comes out, whenever it finishes. Yeah.
Fantastic. Connor, I'm going to spring a little surprise on you.
Uh-huh.
I have one dishonorable mention this year.
Ah!
And it is, in fact, Cyberpunk 2077.
What?
I think it's a fucking travesty of a video game. It's broken. It doesn't work, on console at least. But even the PC version is full of glitches and things to break your immersion. I think the marketing lied to us. There are many mechanics and systems in the game that were advertised to us that are not in the game. It is, at best, a really good Fallout game. At worst, the most frustrating, broken piece of shit I've played this year.
It's funny because I was going to put that. I was thinking about doing a dishonorable mention for it because we're not even putting it in my honorable mention, but I was like, it's the core of a game. It's good, but you're just not holding.
I am infuriated that they let this game come out in this state, and to say, oh well, then you should have gotten it on consoles or you shouldn't have gotten it on last gen consoles is not an excuse. Red Dead Redemption 2 runs fine. The Last of Us 2 runs fine. Why does this game not run at all? Why can I not walk 2 feet without it crashing or a bug happening or my car pulling up and driving away from me? Like, what the fuck is wrong with it? Or when I go to change camera perspectives while I'm driving, why does the game have a seizure every time I do that? On top of that, I think the whole refund controversy was ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And then the fact that they promised Sony and Microsoft that they would get the game fixed in time for release so that they could pass certification. It's just all of these different levels of things of just bullshit that they fed to so many people, including people who are behind the scenes that you should not be lying to. Why are you lying to them? I've never seen a company with so much clout and so much goodwill just throw it away so quickly and so hard. This is, to my knowledge, the worst video game launch ever. Yeah, so it's super disappointing. Hopefully they get it fixed. I don't know if I'll ever really... I don't know if my experience has been so burned that I'll even want to come back to this game. So, we'll find out, though, in time.
A lot of issues with that game.
But, Connor, let's talk about some games we didn't have so many issues with, Connor.
No.
Oh, really?
What?
What do you got?
No, I was just,
Why you gotta interrupt me why you gotta always interrupt me?
I'm just talking.
You're the worst co-host ever.
You're talking.
You're just trash.
I'm just saying nothing. Sweet nothings.
Okay. Alright. Connor, let's get into our top 10s of this year. Shall we?
Yes.
Shall we?
I have it already on my list.
Fantastic. I'm going to start the list off. Number 10, Ori and the Will of the Wisps.
Mm-hmm.
This is only solo because I spent so little time with it this year. Never got around to finishing it. I'm not even halfway through it where I'm at. But what I have played and what I will continue to play is by far just Metroidvania at its best. Like, just a solid example of what the Metroidvania genre can give you. I think it is the most beautiful game I've seen this year, and one of the most beautiful games I've ever played, ever. Just absolutely gorgeous art style, the way the lighting comes in through the trees, the way that each of the characters moves, and the fluidity of each animation. Oh my god, it's so beautiful. And just the platforming and the combat of that game is just excellent. It's just excellent. It never gets old, and the deeper I get in, the more things I unlock and abilities I unlock, and the ability to and like being able to equip more abilities at once and so forth. I'm so excited to continue to unravel this game and dive deeper into it. Just absolutely an excellent game, worth anybody's time.
You seem to haven't had any complaints with this game, from all that I've heard you talk about it.
It's a really great game. It's a really great game.
Now, the only reason like you said before at the beginning, you didn't play enough of it, which is why it's so much lower on the list than it otherwise might have been, right?
Yeah, I haven't played enough.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of in the same boat with my number 10 pick, which is a game that came out of early access this year called Deep Rock Galactic. So,
what the fuck is this?
It's a weird game. Well, it's not actually a weird game, but pretty much the premise is that you play as dwarves, and you're mining. You're working for a mining company where you're having to find rare materials, transport them back for cash, and you have to fight these weird subterranean bugs to make sure that you properly get back and do the work that you need to do. It's primarily focused on being a multiplayer game, one that you have specific classes that have specific tools that you can use to traverse the environment and get to that sweet gold or sweet platinum or whatever it is you're trying to find. I didn't play that much of it, but the few bits that I did play is enough to help me pad out this list. So the gunplay isn't very impactful, but due to the fact that you're coordinating with friends...
It's a first-person shooter?
It's a first-person shooter, okay. Yeah. And due to the fact that all of the classes work well together, not one of them was really bad. You have things like the digger, you have things like the heavy guy, who mainly operates as kind of the person that holds off a lot of the insects while you're trying to mine things. You have the engineer, which, the engineer, I think it's called, actually. I may be wrong about that. But they're easily able to, traverse the environment and get to where you need to go. The classes all work together to make a game that just is really well put together. I mean, it's another example of how well early access can build upon itself to create a game that really doesn't have any issues.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's a fun little game.
All right. My number 9, Yakuza Like a Dragon. Mm-hmm. I'm about 15 hours or so into it, and I'm in love with this game. This game is fantastic, which is super surprising because this is a studio that has never made an RPG before. And so for them to make just a super solid turn-based RPG in the state that it's in, it's fantastic. Does it reinvent the wheel? Does it add any new real twists? Not really. It wears its influences on its sleeve proudly. Lots of references, even in the title, lots of references to Dragon Quest. Lots of things taken from things like Persona and so forth. Like, just a bunch of different, little hints and so forth to where they're like, hey, yeah, we're ripping off all these other great games, but we think we've made a super solid game here as well, and we wanted to make this game. And it's awesome. And also to be the first game in the franchise to have English voiceover, I'm impressed with the level of quality the voice acting is, because often that can fall very, very short when you talk about Japanese games or even any other games that are made overseas. Anyways, the localization can either fall short or the voice acting they find just some Joe Schmo off the street. But here, it's not really the case. Localization's pretty freaking good. And the acting, overall super solid. Super solid acting. So, I'm enjoying, Yakuza a lot. I can't wait to experience the game in its entirety and see some of the crazier things, because let me tell you, Connor, the Yakuza style and flair, very much alive and very much thriving in this game. And the deeper I get in, the more Yakuza it becomes, and the more I'm like, oh, this is so fun. Yeah. This is just a blast.
I'll be buying it later today, and I'll be able to join you on that hype train, because it does look very stylized.
Oh, yeah, it's fun.
The way it's presented.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Connor, your number 9.
My number 9 is Resident Evil 3. So
it made your list.
It made my list. Yeah, well,
it didn't make mine.
Really?
It's not on mine, but we can talk about it.
Okay, well, fair enough. But once again, kind of padding a little bit because I never beat the game.
You never beat the game, which is incredible because it's 6 hours long.
Well, that's because I'm waiting for you because we kind of do a little powwow with that game.
Do you have any interest in coming back to it, or?
Oh yeah, I have a ton of interest in coming back.
Do you remember where we left off?
Yeah. We had just gotten out of the hospital where Jill had woken up.
Oh, dude, we are at the end of the game.
Yeah, I figured we were.
There was like an hour and a half left.
So I played a lot of the game.
Yeah.
I haven't finished it, played a lot of it.
Yeah.
Some disappointing aspects about the game. It is short.
Very.
So people that bought it, like you.
Like myself, because you're just robbing me.
I am robbing you. I'm piggybacking off of you.
Yeah.
Would definitely see this as a kind of a disappointment in a lot of areas, just because it's such a short game for what you're getting out of what you paid.
Sure.
And comparing it to Resident Evil 2, since it's kind of hard not to do that, considering how great of a game that was, the atmosphere of the game didn't really ever do it for me as much as I've been playing it. It seems to go back to its roots of, well, not roots, but goes back to games like Resident Evil 5 and 6, where things kind of get a little bit ridiculous at times.
I don't think that's fair, but
it's not on the same. It's not as bad as those games.
I don't think that's fair. I'll say it doesn't nail its atmosphere and aesthetic as well as 2 did.
No, it does not.
It just across the board, everything about it just doesn't. It's just the game from last year is just so much better than in almost every way in terms of level design, atmosphere. I think even gameplay is better in Resident Evil 2 Remake.
Even though it's not as good, it's got, this is obviously focusing more on action-adventure rather than, survival and trying to scrounge for supplies.
Which, to be fair, in terms of, some, crazy thrills and edge-of-your-seat moments, it does have those, and it nails those when it does those.
Which is why I still, at the end of the day, separate it from Resident Evil 2, because even though it's a different type of style and not as much of a welcome one when compared to 2, on its own, it does its job really well. The dodge mechanic that they included into the game is something that I personally enjoyed.
See, I don't like that, and that's why I think mechanically it's not as good as 2.
See, that was mechanically, I was pretty efficient with it, I feel, with the dodge, mainly against Nemesis. Maybe that's my Dark Souls roots coming back to help me out a little bit.
It just might be.
It honestly might be. But even so, the story isn't much to speak of, but everything's voice acted well. I mean, no,
story in these games are never something to speak of.
I know. Yeah. It's still just a little side note. But, the enemies weren't that good either, in comparison to things like 2, where whenever I would encounter a new enemy, I keep comparing it to 2. Whenever
you're going to, it's the same. Yeah, it's the same game.
It's too similar to not. The enemies, whenever I would encounter a new one, I would be like, okay, I'm just going to shoot it a bunch. Oh, it has this mechanic where they have a closed head and you can only shoot them at certain times. That kind of sucks.
It's more just a time sink than it is an actual challenge.
Yeah, but as much as I'm kind of ragging on it a little bit by comparing it to Resident Evil 2 constantly, for what it tries to do with its action-adventure type elements, with the gunplay, with running away from Nemesis, and how the game looks.
Yeah,
it was a good game.
Yeah, I enjoyed Resident Evil 3 quite a bit. I'm glad that it seems we're taking a pause and a break from remaking this, and because Resident Evil 4 remake is coming. And we're gonna give that hopefully some time to where it is delivered with the excellence that a Resident Evil 4 remake deserves. 3 is interesting because 3 is even in history, if you look at it, 2 is the revolutionary Resident Evil game. People enjoy 1 for what it is, but it's, it is what it is. 2 is the one that, you could probably still go back to and still kind of enjoy, even though it still has its, clunky-ass take controls and it's all this. And then 3 came out, I believe, a year later to the original. And was met with pretty much the same fanfare as what we see today. It's shorter, it's not as good. Sure, they do some things to try and keep it interesting, but for the most part, it's just not nearly as fun as Resident Evil 2 was. And with the exception of Nemesis in the original Resident Evil 3 was met with more fanfare than Mr. X was. Mr. X was obviously just a demo of what Nemesis would soon become. And today, with the remakes, it's the opposite. Mr. X is way more horrifying, way more thrilling, and way more interesting mechanically than Nemesis is.
Yeah.
Nemesis is basically just a thing to get you to hurry the fuck up and get to the next checkpoint.
Yeah, I noticed, like, when you watched me play Resident Evil 2, when I was scared of Mr. X.
You were horrified of Mr. X.
Because I hate characters that chase me, and it did its job really well. I was scared.
Yeah.
I hear the boom, boom, boom,
yeah, those footsteps.
Where is he?
Yeah, hearing those footsteps and hoping that you're listening to them go, okay, I think that's on the floor above me. So I think I can run out this door. Oh shit! No, he's right there.
It never is.
It's never above.
Burst through walls that actually gave me and you a scare. I think in that one segment you never experienced.
Well, it's funny because I knew it happened in Resident Evil 2 remake. I just never came across it.
Yeah.
Because you have to do something kind of specific to trigger it.
Yeah, and I was running
and you
around.
just haphazardly did it, and I was like, oh fuck! Oh right, that does happen.
With Resident Evil 3, I never felt that urgency. That was
it's never there with Nemesis. It's never there.
If anything, it was actually annoying at parts. It was like, okay, I gotta dodge the tentacles, and because with Mr. X, at least you just had to run. With Nemesis, it was constantly like tentacles are coming out at you. He's charging now, which once again added to that action adventure flair. But even so, I always was like, okay, this is just an annoying thing to deal with.
I will say, however, I like the boss fights in Resident Evil 3 more than I liked them in 2.
I was a little bit dismayed that I didn't go over that part, but yes, the Resident Evil 2 boss fights were, kind of bad, in my honesty. Like, those were the parts of the game where it dropped.
They are the lesser parts of the game.
Yes.
Definitely.
Whereas Resident Evil 3, I mean, like, you see Nemesis, like, as a dog creature now, running across the rooftops.
And it's
blowing up.
But it's fun, and you can have tactics with it, and I think that's where the gameplay does shine.
It is. It's what it was obviously kind of made for, but it didn't have as many moments like that shine as much as it could have. Compare that Resident Evil 2, which had lots of moments for that core game to come out and really show you what it's made out of.
Resident Evil 3 Remake is the perfect example of what I always say about Resident Evil, in that it's always best when it's at a single location. Mm-hmm. The Spencer Mansion, or whatever mansion it is in the first game.
Spencer Mansion or whatever.
I think Spencer Mansion is the DLC mansion you go to in 5.
Oh.
The Raccoon City Police Department. The Baker House. With Resident Evil 3, it's Raccoon City, like the whole city.
Going to alleyways and storefronts and stuff.
It causes for you to just not have enough levels of puzzling, and it's almost Resident Evil's at its best when it's almost a Metroidvania. Mm-hmm. Resident Evil 3 is the perfect example of, you're so general in your location that like the interesting parts about this game kind of falls flat. And even though the game is mechanically super sound and solid, at the end of the day, it just doesn't give you the best Resident Evil experience you can have. And it's so short that it's just, and it comes with so little content other than the main game that it's just really not worth the $60 price tag.
Mm. Which kind of comes to the core of the problems with Resident Evil 3, it seems, is just all what you're getting isn't worth $60.
Uncharted Lost Legacy that game could have been $60 and they charged $40. Spider-Man Miles Morales, they charged $54, but that's because of the $10 price hike for next gen. You could have charged $60 for that game. I'm glad they didn't. I think it's priced accordingly. But both of those games come with more content than is in here in Resident Evil 3. And even the last Ratchet & Clank game was a $40 game. Mm-hmm. And that came with way more content than Resident Evil 3 Remake. So I don't understand why they made this decision. But when I speak of RE3, I'm still going to say awesome thrill ride. Very fun game.
Yeah.
Connor, we just spent a lot of time talking about Resident Evil 3.
We did. I mean, it's not on your list.
It's not even on my list, so here we go. My number 8 is Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
Aha, yes, I forgot you played that.
Assassin's Creed is... I'm a fan of Assassin's Creed in general. I think it's got its highs, it's got its lows, it's got its peaks, it's got its valleys. It's got its kind of middling entries. And I think Assassin's Creed has really caught a new stride in this last 3 games they've put out with Origins, Odyssey, and now Valhalla. Yeah. I think the move to be more of an RPG type game has worked out very much in their favor. When Odyssey included dialogue options, I didn't know how to feel about that, but they pulled it off, I think, with flying colors. Even though the story in Odyssey is kind of nonsense and just kind of there to be fun and interesting enough for the specific story arc you're in. Valhalla, to me, after Odyssey being what I think the best Assassin's Creed game, Valhalla to me is a sidestep to maybe even a step down. And in several ways is a little disappointing to me. It feels like we've stripped back on the RPG mechanics just ever so slightly with some of the choices they've made with, the lack of weapon, like just random weapon varieties, the pullback on, stat increases from weapon to weapon, and the more interest to just like have like these specific weapons that you carry with you and upgrade with you as you progress through the game. There is, a handful of armor sets, a handful of axes and swords and shields and stuff like that. I think it makes exploring every nook and cranny and searching through chests way less interesting, so I'm less inclined to do so. I think in terms of like the dialogue options in Odyssey, I thought was such a fascinating thing, and how they pulled it off was so creative. In Valhalla, there's a lot less options in terms of like Eivor speaks for themselves a lot more than Cassandra did. Cassandra, you would have a dialogue option come up like every 3 sentences. With Eivor, you might get 1 or 2 every conversation, maybe. But for the most part, Eivor speaks for herself. However, I do think the story is super interesting, super fascinating. There's a lot of characters who I want to see their arcs complete. There's a general premise of the game that I want to see how it plays out. And at the end of the day, the Assassin's Creed continued pull from, or the continued inspiration from Dark Souls is only making the gameplay better and better.
Funny for a guy that doesn't like Dark Souls.
That doesn't like Dark Souls. But yeah, I'm continued to be excited about the future of Assassin's Creed. I've continued to be interested to see where it's going, and I'm continued to just be chomping at the bit for the next entry. And Valhalla is no different. Valhalla is a really fun game, if just a sidestep from what Odyssey was.
So you're, I know there's been a pretty big split, more so than I noticed, of people that say that the older Assassin's Creed games are better, or the newer ones are better. So
I am a 100% fully into that new games are better camp.
Yeah. That's really the big conversation. I
feel like all those I'll call them old heads to like co-opt to like a hip hop way of thinking of it. I think all those old heads are speaking from nostalgia. Go back and play that Ezio trilogy. It's fun, sure, but it's very limited in what you can do. Mm-hmm. There is the combat is not good.
Very wait and react. Oh, yeah, press triangle.
It's never been really that great. I think its stories are charming and its characters are charming for what they are. But I just think across the board, Assassin's Creed has stepped its game up 100-fold ever since they stopped becoming annual.
Yes.
In what we were having.
They had to change their entire formula for them to keep on going. Yeah. Otherwise, they would have by now. If they had kept with the old system, people would have, even the people who probably like the older games, probably wouldn't have been playing them at this point. If you got a year every single time a game came out, and it was always kind of the same limited type of game.
Yeah, it probably would have lost me by now, because I didn't really play Unity because it was broken when on release, and I think it's still pretty busted. And Syndicate, I only made it about halfway through before I lost interest. But Syndicate is always a game that I'm like, oh yeah, I'd like to go back and get that platinum. In one of those months where I've got nothing going on.
Well, that's your platinum-seeking brain thinking, not even the game itself.
Exactly. Well, Syndicate was still a solid game.
You make it sound like it is, but you have no interest in trying to see that through.
Well, the problem with Syndicate is it's just more Assassin's Creed. Mm-hmm. And when it came out, we had so much Assassin's Creed that I was like, I don't know if I need this experience anymore. So for them to come back with Origins and make it so fresh and exciting and new, and for it to be pulled off as well as it is, I think it deserves commendation, and I think the future is bright for this franchise.
Mm-hmm. 2 more years for the next game to come out. Most likely.
Well, probably next year or something, or maybe the year, or we never know with COVID, but they've got 2 Assassin's Creed teams running. So this team was the Origins team. I'm excited to see what the Odyssey team comes with.
Nice.
Connor, number 8.
My number 8 pick is The Last of Us 2. So
Interesting.
I can assume that I'm going to limit my talking to this game.
No, say whatever you want to say.
Okay, so pretty much, I need to point out that as far as technical aspects go, this game is, I kind of decided, I was thinking of the better word to describe it, and I guess I would say achievement. It's definitely a masterpiece. Like, everything is done perfectly. A game cannot...
technically,
it is perfect.
It's visuals, it's sound design.
The visuals, the sound design, the voice acting, which I guess is not really technical, but that is also
in the world of games. You could say it's technical.
Yeah, it's kind of a gray area. It really depends on who you ask.
Yeah,
but, I thought it was fantastic
because no game is successable because of its voice acting.
No. It's those are the areas where I think it
outside of maybe like a Telltale game.
And that's a different type of game entirely. But these are the aspects of the game that I can say, even as a lover of the original Last of Us, exceeds that in every way. Even the voice acting, even though my complaints...
Well, 7 years difference. You better be a prettier game. On new hardware, you better be a prettier game.
The bigger focus, I think, with that is the voice acting. It's even better in this game than Last of Us 1. But the issues that I have with this game, why it's so much higher, is unlike you, for example, I didn't really take to any of the characters. I never really found any of them interesting, and the game never let them shine as much. Specifically, characters like Ellie, who I loved in the first Last of Us, but in this one, due to her entire quest and how she went about carrying it out, it almost seemed like it was a different character to me, which did a pretty bad job at trying to make me like this game as much as I might should have had. But beyond that, another problem I've had with it is the repetitive gameplay and environment. So, in the original Last of Us, people kind of criticized the gameplay because some people said it wasn't that fun. I loved it. And I
also think the Last of Us 1 gameplay is super solid.
Yeah, I think so as well.
But I do kind of, with age and how that game is aging, I'm starting to understand the complaints about the first game's combat.
No, but at least at the time, you and me can agree that we
at the time, I thought it was great.
I thought it was too. And... Yeah. The issues I think actually start to come out from someone who hasn't played the first Last of Us in a while is when you compare a 9-hour game to a 20-hour long game, where you're constantly doing the same things over and over again, and you're just trying to get through the game and its story, and you're faced with repetitive environments, as I was saying before, because they all look very samey, even if they do look very, very nice, going back to those technical achievements, and gameplay that just kind of falters the more and more you play it. But really, my main issues with the game are the characters and the fact that the plot itself never fully was something that I took to as well. Everything, as opposed to what a lot of other people have said, made sense to me. The decisions that the characters made were rational. Or at least rational in the sense that they were in a certain emotional state.
You're saying the story is well made and well constructed. You just didn't connect with it.
I didn't connect with it at all, mainly because, once again, going back to the core problem of me not caring for any of the characters, even ones that were established in the last games. And, I will admit, the removal of Joel from the game is a big reason for that, because the thing that I've always thought is that if you're going to kill off a character like that, which is what I'm not angry at, because I know a lot of other people are also angry that Joel got killed, but if you do something like that to an amazing character...
But at this point,
everyone is known, yeah. If you do something like that, and then replace it with a character who, once again, functionally does her job in the form of Abby, if I don't care about her, especially a lot less than Joel, especially when you factor in the fact that she killed him, it just kind of leaves me thinking, why did I play a game as a character I don't end up really liking all that much? I know you're grimacing right now because
we'll get to it.
Completely opposite.
We'll get to
of
it
me.
Because listeners of this podcast, it's no surprise that this game is in my top 3.
Yeah, not at all.
I'm gonna unload my final load on The Last of Us Part 2 here in a few minutes.
So I feel like we'll probably have a discussion, that being said, later down the line.
Maybe. We'll find out.
But we had a whole kind of review episode on this.
Yeah.
So, in short, without me having to really write everything down that I thought about this game, it seems fitting that I place it in my top 8.
Sure. Okay. Number 7, Valorant. Valorant is a super, super awesome, super great squad-based hero shooter. To me, Valorant is a perfect example of just all, heightened tension at all times. I never know if somebody's around this next corner. And if they are, am I better than them? Am I going to be able to hit my shot? It's just this constant, not fear, but just constant... I just can't find another word than tension, that I'm just like, I'm just so excited to to try again and try again and try again and figure out how this enemy team operates and how maybe I can exploit that, and knowing that they're doing the same thing to me and how my team operates. I think, I mean, it's a secret to no one that this game is more or less just a Counter-Strike clone, but the inclusion of hero abilities and class abilities and all of this, I think leads it to such an interesting and adds such a twist to that type of gameplay, to where it's like, okay, this game is really refreshing and a breath of fresh air to multiple different genres or subgenres of a first-person shooter, that it's just a blast. And the fact that it's free,
no reason
to not give it a shot and give it the old college try. I also just appreciate how high the skill ceiling is in this game. There are people who are great, and then there were people who are okay, and then there were people who are bad.
And you could tell easily when that happens, which kind of becomes an issue when you're playing by yourself and not with friends, which is really where this game shines.
Well, see, this is what I found out in the last week or two, where I started playing on my own a little bit. Mm-hmm. And boy, the people that the game pairs me with are fucking morons.
Now,
because I usually play with people who are pretty damn good at this game.
Yes, very, very good.
Me just being kind of okay, I fall short very often. But when I solo queue, I'm clowning these motherfuckers.
Yeah. You see, when I played it by myself, it was really less of a fact that my teammates were bad, and more just when there's no coordination, proper coordination where you're constantly talking to people.
Yeah. Communication is key.
Yes, the game kind of falls apart on your end of the team. And if the other team is actually cohesive and working together, they're going to have a lot better of a time than you are. Mm-hmm. So I feel like this is a good time to mention, because we did talk about the rules earlier on. Valorant is in my number 4 place.
Okay.
That was my, just outside of number 3.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of the same exact reasons you said.
Sure.
A funny thing that Fergus and Tavin, the guys we play with a lot
Fergus
of the time.
Fergus and
who? Fergus and Glenn,
there
a lot of the time, is that they were commenting recently about how this has actually made them better at first-person shooters. And that's another positive I think I can apply to the game as well. Mm-hmm. I'm not on their same skill level, but I'm enough to where I've definitely seen improvements, not only with first-person shooters, but also with my PC playing, because this is the first full year in gaming where I actually had access to a PC, mm-hmm. and it helped me get better with a lot of the shooting mechanics. And now, after I played Valorant and I go to other games that require me to shoot, I do a lot better. So it's also just a really solid game. And I think that really speaks to the gunplay, on how clean it feels and mm-hmm. how it really just makes you feel like you're good at a game.
It's a game where if you don't hit your shot, you know why. You know why you didn't hit your shot. I didn't pace those shots out enough. I didn't let my aim reset. I was moving while I was shooting. I was jumping while I was shooting. I wasn't crouched while I was shooting. You know why your shots didn't hit.
Doesn't mean that you'll say that the other player had good shots.
Well, yeah, of course. Oh man, that was bullshit. How'd he get me through the smoke through a wall? And it just happened to be a headshot. But you understand why your skill didn't match up, mm-hmm. which is something that not every game can say.
No. Especially something like Call of Duty, which is a big multiplayer game.
Well, I think even Rainbow Six Siege, it's difficult to tell why you lost a firefight.
Yeah.
Which I think it says more about. I think that has contributed more to the style of this game and its art style. It's very simple, very cartoony, but the animations are clear, and the way they've animated how bullets fly around makes it very, very clear. Oh, okay, this is how the mechanics of shooting work in this game, and this is why I missed that shot. And it's all shown to you through gameplay, and that's fantastic. Or gameplay you can see. Connor.
Yes.
What is your number 7?
My number 7 pick, padding, yay, is Rogue Company.
You did not put a padding game over The Last of Us Part 2.
Well, because here's the reason why.
How fucking dare you?
See, this is, I realized...
How fucking dare you?
So before the show started, I said, Tavin, you're going to hate something on my list.
Piece of fucking shit.
Now, I was kind of wrong, because there's 2 things you're going to hate about my list.
Oh my god.
For now, though, number 7 is... So
I'll talk about it later.
I've had access to this game for a little while, but... I haven't played it that much. I know it's good. I know.
So goddamn
I know.
much.
So the thing about Rogue Company is that it's kind of uninspired. Yeah.
How'd you
see? Now even though it's uninspiring, it's fun.
I'm about to beat you up.
What the game does is efficient to a degree at what it does. The game, by the way, is terrible when you're by yourself. Don't play it. I played like one match by myself. It's not fun. Hey, at least Last of Us, you can enjoy it by yourself and get upset at the elements of the game that I don't like.
I'm going to strangle you.
Okay, because Tavin's making a big deal of it, I have to mention that the reason why this is above something like Last of Us is I have tons of problems with The Last of Us.
Okay.
Rogue Company, the biggest issue I have is that it's boring by yourself, and something that our editor, our image creator for our YouTube channel, Fergus, would say is that when you're planting the bomb, because it's an objective-based game where you're trying to plant a bomb, one team's defending, one team's attacking.
Third-person squad-based shooting.
Yes, similar to Valorant in a way. When the bomb is planted, while it's being defused, it stops the counter, which leads to there being a lot less weight behind when your team gets wiped out. Because in something like Valorant, your team can completely die.
But maybe you bought yourself enough time that the bomb will still explode.
And that happens a lot more than you might think. That issue is never a problem in Rogue Company because it's constantly just,
as soon as you're on the bomb, you're fine.
Yeah. Beyond that, though, and a little bit of an unbalance between the characters' abilities that you can get access to, the gunplay is fun enough. It's fast-paced, it's really quick. Like Valorant, it's free, so you're not really going to be having to take a bullet in terms of your wallet size with that. And
we'll get to it later. Just finish talking about Rogue Company. Fuck, Rogue, whatever it is.
Yeah. To be quite honest, I don't have many negative things to say about this game, nor exponentially positive aspects about this game.
Okay.
Yeah, Rogue Company, it's a fun time.
Cool. All right. Number 6.
Number 6. Moving on.
Moving on. Fucking asshole. Number 6, Ghost of Tsushima. Ghost is the best Assassin's Creed game to come out this year. The implementation of its stance-based swordplay combat, I think, is stellar. I think it rivals that of games like Neo and what's the other one that I'm thinking of? Ninja Gaiden? I don't remember. But I think its combat is fantastic. It's thrilling. It's fun. It's challenging in moments. And there's nothing better than that feeling of hitting that perfect parry and knocking that guy off balance just so you could deliver a killing blow. I think its story is super solid and interesting, and I love the dichotomy of what it means to be a samurai and what Jin Sakai is becoming in order to save his people. I haven't finished it, but I fully intend to platinum this game. I fucking adore this game for its art style, the use of color, and its general just atmosphere and mood. Its exploration, I think, is the best part of the game. It is always fun to just walk around and explore and look around at things, and just see how all of these clashing elements in the art style come together to just form some beautiful, beautiful art. I have personal issues with the game in terms of how button mapping is placed. It doesn't feel natural. Its climbing mechanics are god awful. And I think the acting can come off a bit flat at times. But its inclusion of its multiplayer mode Legends bumped it up a few slots in my list. Because that shit is bananas. That shit is crazy good. That's it's damn near a games of service game done better than most games of service modes.
Free.
It's a free update that they could have charged $20, $30, $40 for.
You were mentioning earlier that, games like Resident Evil 4 Resident Evil 3 wasn't adequately priced. This one didn't have a price at all. And it was worthy of being paid for.
Ghost of Tsushima says, hey, not only are we going to be one of the better games this year, we are going to be the best deal this year. Mm-hmm. And it's just a phenomenal, phenomenal piece of work. Sucker Punch should be super proud of themselves. And as a fan of Sucker Punch games, Ghost of Tsushima holds its own against games that I have undying nostalgic love for. Infamous and Sly Cooper, if you were to ask me, there's very few games that could be in that that tier of gaming. And Ghost, even though it personally doesn't reach that for me, I'll never be mad at someone saying Ghost of Tsushima is Sucker Punch's best game, because I get it. It's a phenomenal game, worth all its accolades. And the more I come back to it, and the more I just bounce back to it, the more I love and appreciate it. Maybe part of it is it's the first real big game that I played after Last of Us Part 2, which tries to be, I think, so much more than a video game. And Ghost of Tsushima just tries to be the best video game it can be. Just an absolute fantastic game.
Great game. Now, for my number 6 pick, and hopefully just the second time you're going to get angry at me for putting a game above Last of Us, and that is a very small game called Helltaker.
What the fuck is this?
So, this is a free game on Steam. So it's free, so it's not like you have to pay for it. It takes like an hour to complete. Now, I would like to say this is padding, but honestly, this game...
I'm just waiting for you to talk about
this game. This game was funny, because it's a game... So here's the premise. You're a guy who wants to have a harem of demon girls. So you go down to hell, and that's what you try to do down there. And now it's a puzzle game. It's a very,
for
very...
audiences at home, I just cringed
I know
so
you did,
hard.
Yeah. Well, and that's the premise of the game. It caters to an audience, and it has a purpose, which is to have good art. Because it has very good art.
Okay.
Both the main character and all the demons are designed very well. But what the gameplay entails, it's basically a puzzle game where you have to navigate through areas that have enemies that don't fight back. You just kind of got to hit them out of the way. Rocks that you got to hit out of the way to get to your objective, which is always a demon girl. Always. Except for once where it's a door. But the puzzle mechanics of the game are pretty solid. You know, if it was a game that was 3 hours long or 4 hours long or however long most puzzle games are, it wouldn't be on this list because it would overstay its welcome. But once again, it takes like an hour to complete the game, maybe 2 even. And, it's got demon girls in it. Yeah, but going forward, the music is actually good. It's the same soundtrack throughout the entire game, but it's, it never feels repetitive. It's really, really catchy. It's got a nice beat to it.
Cool.
Technically, if you're trying to be as specific as possible, it is a perfect game. Because it has, there's really nothing wrong with the game. It's short, it's sweet, it has nice visuals to it.
It's free?
The gameplay's fun, it's free. Yeah.
Okay.
Number 6 spot.
Alright. Cool.
And that's not even padding.
Number 5. I've got Spider-Man Miles Morales. Miles Morales, I think, is a super solid follow-up to the Spider-Man 2018 game. I think overall it's more or less just an average Spider-Man story, with a couple of rushed moments where they don't earn every character moment that they're trying to. But I think it's new twists on its gameplay, and I think it's continued just flexibility that they've added to the swinging system. It's just fun to just be Spider-Man, and it excites me to just theorize about what mechanically they're gonna do in the next main Spider-Man game. Are they gonna have us bounce back and forth between these two characters? Because I'll tell you what, after playing Miles, I like playing as Miles more than I like playing as Peter.
It could be a hard thing to do if they just say, "Oh, you're gonna play Peter Parker mostly in the next game." Yeah,
yeah. And it's also, I think, the best setup for a new character to stand alongside a beloved character. It's the best setup of a character outside of Into the Spider-Verse. And I adore it. I love its style. I love its hip hop influences. You know me, Connor. I'm a huge hip hop head.
Really?
I love the culture of hip hop so fucking much. And to finally see it represented in a video game, which I think those two things have so much crossover, but they never interact with each other. Almost never interact with each other. It's just such a loving marriage between great gameplay, great free roaming, super fun story, super solid acting, and then just a great iteration of what is America's most beloved character outside of maybe Mickey Mouse. And just absolutely hats off to Insomniac. I think they kill it with every entry they've ever made. And this one's no different.
Now, I know you would, correct me if I'm wrong, but had you said before that this doesn't really seem like it's going to tie into another game? You say it seems like everything's kind of localized.
This is more of an establishment for Miles. So
yes.
Is it necessary to play? No, I don't think so. There is a post-credit scene that adds some mystique to the overarching thing and direction that they're going to, but I think for the most part it's more of just so that players can become familiar with Miles and so that they can learn to love him before he had probably inevitably takes on the mantle of the main Spider-Man, assuming they're going the comic route.
Yeah.
But
which is the direction the game sounded like it needed to take.
Yeah.
It didn't need to do it didn't need to be like a 2.5 game.
I think they fully intend to have
1.5.
Spider-Man 2 be Miles already being, damn near on the same level as Peter, and this is narratively this is their way of doing that without raising any questions. And we also just get a fucking really fun Spider-Man game. So I'm down.
Too bad you weren't able to play it on the PS5. It was a
little glitchy. It didn't run super well on PS4. And loading screens were long as fuck.
More of an issue with the whole deal of not being able to get a PS5 rather than how the game was made,
well, obviously, they spent more time optimizing for next gen, but it was a launch title for next gen. So, what am I going to be mad about that? Of course they're going to spend more time on that.
This reminds me.
It's not like with Cyberpunk where the last gen version is the only console version of the game, and it's where a significant portion of your player base is going to be playing the game. That's a problem.
Yeah.
And then blaming it on hardware that should have ran the game fine to begin with, that there's a difference there.
Yeah.
The game is still really good, and at most I just get a couple of visual glitches once every hour.
Yeah, that's nothing.
That's nothing.
To Cyberpunk.
It's just a moment of, Miles is naked.
Yeah.
Okay, now he's got his suit on. Okay, cool. That's all that is.
Yeah. You talking about that kind of makes me sad that I wasn't able to play Demon's Souls. That PS5
Even I kind of want to play Demon's Souls. The
damn.
more people talk about it, the more I see from them. That game looks kind of fun.
Hey, it's the easiest Souls game.
Is it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Not Sekiro?
No.
Oh.
Souls. No, Sekiro's kind of difficult in a lot of ways.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
Well, there you go. Well, Connor, number 5.
My number 5 pick is Genshin Impact.
I saw this one coming.
Yeah. It was going to have to be on there eventually. So, Genshin Impact, I've talked about it once before. It's an action-adventure game. It requires a lot of in-game purchases or out-of-game purchases with, obviously, real currency, where you... pretty much the big allure of the game, at least for me, when I play it, is to get as many characters as you can, because each character operates in a different way, and as far as that goes, they operate in a very fun way. Because, first of all, the combat, there's 5 different types of weapons you can use. Lance, spear, greatsword, magic, or arrows, and they all work very well to create a pretty fun combat system, even if the enemies that you're fighting are pretty much samey throughout the entire game. The combat in there is very fluid. It runs very smooth. It looks very flashy, so it's nice to look at. And each character brings something new to the table, even though they use different weapons because their attack patterns are different. They have different special abilities, different ultimate abilities, and the world itself also looks amazing. It really, really looks nice. When I first saw this game, I was a little bit hesitant that I was going to like it at all because it had even though I like anime, it had a way too anime art style to it. So it looks very generic is a better way to say it.
Gotcha.
It looks like any random anime that I could watch coming out this year. But considering everything was brightly lit, which is something that I'm honestly kind of a fan of, as long as it's not overly bright, it really made the world come alive in terms of color and in terms of how it was designed. And in a game where you spend a lot of time running around it, trying to find, trying to do quests, running around the area, finding dungeons that you can go into, and, get special rewards for doing them. It really worked to make a better game. It wouldn't have been as good if the world itself was very bland and boring, and I felt like, gotta run across samey-looking, boring areas to get to where I need to go. Now, going into the parts where you had to actually find, dungeons to go in and explore, what they would sometimes have is requirements of resin to be given so you can actually access these areas. and resin would recharge every day. But if you wanted to do more and more activities with resin, you would have to buy them, either with in-game items that you had gotten over the time, or if you didn't have any of those, real out-of-game currency.
So we're looking at your mobile game.
Yeah, it's obviously catered to be a mobile experience, which is a problem because a lot of people play this game mobily. Now, funny enough, I was talking with my friend Jordan about how it could be so much better if less time was focused on trying to make a mobile game and more one that's just localized to the console or the PC. But when you think about it, a large portion of this game's player base are people in places like China, where work culture is very, very prevalent, and they don't have lots of time to actually be at home and play these games outside of just pulling out their phone real quickly to play on it. So despite it being a problem from my perspective, because it makes the game not live up to the potential that it could reach with the amount of in-game content that's generated and how
it's doing what it needs to do.
It's doing what it needs to do to help out those people at least play games. And with the newest expansion that came out, it looks like they're going to be moving farther away from being required to actually pay money to play the game in its entirety. So that's the main reason why I wasn't putting it too high, because when I was playing it for the majority of the time, it required those,
$5 is still pretty solid for what this game is.
Yeah, it's still solid for what it is. It's free game at the core of it, so it's not like you have to pay anything to get access to it. The characters are really nice. It gives you a lot of incentive to keep playing the game with those free updates and with all those characters that you can get, and it's just a pretty great game overall.
Okay, all right. Number 4 for me, Doom Eternal. Doom is the prime example of gameplay is king. This game, I don't think ever gets old from beginning to end. It is a blast. It is 100% balls to the wall the entire fucking time. And it's by far the best shooter I've played since the 2016 Doom, and I think it's the best mechanically feeling game this year. I don't think there's a single game this year that matches what this game does in terms of fluidity in gameplay and fluidity in movement. It's just, oh my god, it just never, ever, ever, ever gets old. The feeling of like, okay, this is a room, it's got, 3 cacodemons, 6 imps, and 1 or 2 of those big fuckers that I can't, and a fucking, what is it called? Yeah, it's something, I forget what all the enemy types are called at this point. There's a lot. How do I approach this? Who do I target first? How do I target them? I've got this much ammo in my arsenal right now. I'm a little low on shotgun ammo because I just blasted through it all in the last room. Okay, let me use the chainsaw real quick on the cacodemon to kill that real fast, get it out of the way. Okay, now I have all this ammo. Let me use it on these imps to get rid of these imps, and then now I can focus on that big meanie right there. Just the constant feeling of progression in that game is still fucking incredible to me. And just, you always feel so powerful. And I think that's just a testament to the whoever designed each encounter, the lead encounter designer, whatever, just being on their A game and just knowing, okay, this amount of enemies is too much, this amount of enemies is too full. How do we balance this correctly? I also think it's underratedly beautiful in so many ways. It's gory as fuck, and everything's all hellish, so it doesn't get the credit I think it deserves. But like in terms of detail, it's phenomenal. The inclusion of all of those other new movement abilities and even the platforming a little bit, I think are super welcome. Some people didn't love the platforming as much. I didn't find it intrusive at all because any quote-unquote platforming in the game is short, simple, and you're in it and then you're out of it really fast. It's not like something you're like, fuck, man, this 5-minute platforming section is going to kill me. It's literally just like 3 jumps and then I'm in the next combat encounter.
Yeah.
Like,
very fluid from place to place.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And now, it's better than the original Doom. I think you at once said that it might not have been. I would probably.
Oh no! I think it's head and shoulders better than the last one.
Mm-hmm.
There are other people who don't think so much, but I absolutely just adore Doom Eternal, and it'll be for a long time one of my favorite first person shooters.
Good. Now, for my fourth place, Valorant. You know, we already talked about that for a while.
Yeah, so we can probably move right on, yeah?
You can move right on, yeah. I don't have much else to say about it.
We haven't really talked, we failed to talk about this behind the scenes. My number 3, I know, is also in your top 3.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure it's going to rank higher. Do you want to...
Let's talk.
I think I'll give my take, and then when we get to it, you'll give your take, and then maybe we can have some back and forth after that take.
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. My number 3 is Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Is that coming?
No,
I knew it was going to be the top 3.
Yeah.
Before you even said it, but now it's all just like.
I think both of our top 3s is super easy to figure out.
Yes, easy.
Final Fantasy VII Remake is a great game. Great game. I'm working through my hard playthrough right now for the platinum, and just even the difference from playing on normal to playing on hard is so cool. Because the ways in which you have to change your mindset for how you play the game is super fascinating to me. It's now on hard. It now plays more. It almost plays more like a more traditional active time battle. Turn-based RPG.
Because you're constantly having to pause a lot more. And
you have to pause and think and stop and be like, okay, fuck. Okay, he's about to attack. I don't know what he's going to attack with, but I do know if it's this move, I'm fucked. If it's anything other than this move, I'm fine. So because if it's this move, I'm fucked. What can I do to maybe throw that off to buy myself some more time so that Tifa can get her healing spell off? And I go, okay, well. He's got a weakness to lightning, so if I throw Barret and Cloud's heavy lightning attacks at him at the same time, that might stagger him and give me time to get these healings off. And just the ways in which they twist that main gameplay formula in hard mode is super fascinating to me. And that's already off the back of on normal, it's already awesome. It's already fun. It's already a blast.
A lot more faster paced from the way you're saying.
And the way in which they have you build your ATB bar and fill up your energy bar for people who don't know, is like such like a way, so creative to me. Because it truly, in my mind, revolutionizes what it means to be an active time battle RPG. I think every single RPG should look at this formula from here until the end of time. Now, we could still have our traditional turn-based RPGs. Yakuza Like a Dragon is a great example of why that still works. Persona 5 is a great example of why that still works. However, I think if we were ever to get, say, a Knights of the Old Republic remake, they should look at Final Fantasy VII Remake as a basis for how they should shape their gameplay. I don't want what the original KOTOR has. I want 7 Remake's gameplay in a KOTOR remake. It's just absolutely, just mechanically such a solid action RPG. And I adore it for that. Its story, I think, is overall capable, mostly. I think its characters are unbelievably charming, and I love them. However, as someone who didn't play the original Final Fantasy VII at launch, by the end of the game, I was fucking lost. It makes no goddamn sense to new players, and if you've never played the original Final Fantasy VII, stay away from this game.
No, yeah.
Narrative, if you care about narratives.
Yeah, I was going to recommend this to one of my friends, but
they need to play the first one first. They need to play the original.
In good faith, do that because they'll be confused.
They need to know. They need to know that original story.
Yeah. You had to wait for me to finish the game before, like, saying, okay, so does that mean? To kind of guide you in those directions.
But I will say, once you do know Final Fantasy VII, you do know that story, and you do understand all of those narrative beats, 7 Remake just might be the most ambitious experiment in gaming since I don't even know when. Like, It's so incredible what they're doing here, and it could totally blow up in their face, or it could, they could pull it off, and it could be the best
experiment.
We'll say switch up ever. Like, and I'm amazed at just the balls. Just the balls to do it. Because they know nobody was asking for it.
No.
And they're doing it anyway.
And they know people are going to be upset about it, which I've seen a lot of.
Oh, yeah, a lot of people are upset.
Yeah, and they even recognize themselves, this might not be good.
Yeah.
Just get ready for that.
There's almost like subtext in some of those final lines where they're like, hey, this is scary for us too. We don't know what we're doing.
I know.
But we have an idea, and we think it works.
And you and me both, like you were saying, it's ballsy, and we like it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm very, very, very excited to see where this remake series goes in the future, and I'm excited to see its influence on gaming culture as a whole. Because I don't think it's personally a problem, but there is a conversation that people are sick of remakes and remasters and all of this, and they want new games and new ideas.
This almost seems like a middle ground if that's the topic.
It almost does. It almost does. Me personally, I love remakes. In where they actually like change things up and switch it up mechanically and update the game to where it should be. I love Resident Evil 2 remake for that reason. I love Final Fantasy 7 remake obviously for this reason. And it's what I would hope in the future every real remake for these beloved franchises do. For like Metal Gear or KOTOR or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, Final Fantasy 7 remake is definitely one of the greatest games of this year, and one of the most exciting experiments I've ever seen. Connor, you're number 3.
It's Ghost of Tsushima. So you probably saw this.
Yep.
What to say that you haven't said before? Well, first of all, it's badass to feel like a samurai. Let's be honest here.
It is indeed.
Especially when you have so much customization with the character as well. You can make them look however you wanted them to. Within the confines of the game, obviously. But beyond that, you touched on the combat system about how it's the best Assassin's Creed game, which, I have no reason to disagree at all because, getting those perfect parries off feels really, really good and looks really, really good. Nothing like just parrying somebody and then slicing their neck open with one cool slice and then having them fall down all stylized like, like you're watching an old samurai movie. But in addition to the gameplay and how good that can be, traversing through the environment, which never feels boring because of how beautiful it is and how artistic it looks. Like, you can take pictures of that, especially with its photo mode, and act like it's, some digital artist made it online. So here's my little artist of the samurai running through the forest with the cherry blossoms blowing all over the place.
The simple touch of when you're riding a horse through the I don't know what they are, like the wheat field looking things.
Dry grass, yeah.
And when Jin leans down to just feel his hand go through that. Such a great touch.
It is. I mean, there's a reason why when the title of the game first popped up, he was doing that. Unless it's different for everyone else. Because that's what he's doing
yeah. Well, yeah. I don't know if he's doing that. I don't know if they did that on purpose, but they definitely made your path that way on purpose so that hopefully you would do that.
Because they knew what they were making was a beautiful game, and it never really let up. I
forget how great that opening is.
It's a very good opening. Very, very
good.
Title
screen pops up, yeah.
But, the voice acting does fall flat from time to time. I think Jin's pretty good. I see him as more of a kind of a stoic character. Like, they're not supposed to be emotional and cry and yell and get angry, and he doesn't really do that all that much.
Sure, but Geralt is a stoic character, and I find him way more charming than Jin.
Yeah, well, because the voice acting is still better in that regard.
Sure.
But the voice acting's acceptable here. It's acceptable. It's not bad.
Yeah.
The side content in the game is, we've said this before, it's very boring. Now,
such a shame after being so many years after Witcher 3. But anyways.
Now, there is side content in the form of little miniature side stories with the characters that you meet throughout the game. Those are great. Very great. If everything was of that quality, I would have no complaints in this area, but unfortunately they're not. But those character quests, they're very much a build-up until the final area you get to when you round out all those quests, because they kind of take you on a journey to each different region with different objectives in mind. Well, not really different objectives in mind, but you go along a certain side story. It carries on throughout the entirety of the game alongside the main path. And they're very good. Yeah, you learn to like the characters, because the characters are charming, even if the voice acting can be lacking at points. That dichotomy between Jin wanting to be a samurai and wanting to be a ninja is very good as well. I'm kind of finding ways...
not necessarily being a ninja, but
doing
what he has to do to win.
I always think of ninjas whenever I think of that, because he gets stealthy.
It's ninja-like, yeah.
It's ninja-like. He kills enemies from the darkness and stuff like that. It works really well. There's not much that I can say that you didn't point out in your own review. So it's just a great game. And it would have been my number 2 spot if it wasn't for something else that'll probably be in your number 2 pick as well.
It very likely is. So my number 2 is Hades.
Mine too!
Oh my god! Hades, I think is unrelenting fun.
This game came out and, it looked like a good game, because I remember it back in the day.
Yeah, when it was announced for early access, I didn't have any type of PC or anything. Mm-hmm. But I knew as soon as I saw it, I wanted to play it. Because it just looked like fun. The roguelike games I've always flirted with in the past, but I've never dived super deep into any of them except for this one and Dead Cells. And this one I think is the best roguelike I've ever played.
And it's resonated with so many people. I see so good. I've only seen praises.
I've never seen a game like this go mainstream in the way that it has.
No, never have I either. And, going into what we were talking about before with something like Resident Evil 3, which was $60. This was $25.
Yeah.
I got it for $20 because it was on sale at the time.
And
this is a game...
I'm 30 hours in, and I'm still nowhere near the quote-unquote actual end of the game. And I'm still enjoying it every time I jump in. It's never, ever, ever old.
Yeah. Speaking of, by the way, I just yesterday did my 4th run of beating Hades.
Oh, really? You're in 4?
Yeah.
Wow, you've been playing a lot more than me.
Yeah, I've ever since I've beaten the game, I've done 5 runs, 6 runs, and only 2 of those I failed. Everything I want to.
Oh, well, look at you!
Yeah, it's kind of an easier game once you get used to it. I've actually kind of held myself back. I think I'm going to purposely die because I want to actually see how some of these plot lines can play out. I don't know if there's going to be
you might be getting to the end too quickly.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. So
I'm going too quickly.
That speaks to it too, because not every game I would do this for, especially because I kind of want to complete it and see how the story plays out, because that's something that all of us want to see done. That's probably why you're going to go back to it eventually.
Yeah.
And the speaking of that, the characters are kind of at the core of that story, because the entire bit is finding out your main character's place in all things.
What's interesting about this game in comparison to other roguelikes is it actually gives a shit about its story.
It does. It's not like...
And it's layered, and the characters are lying to you and giving you misinformation intentionally, and there's character motivations behind those lies, and it's all just so fascinating to just peel these layers back and have this information revealed to you slowly, bit by bit.
There's no antagonist in this game. Well, there are antagonists in the game, but there's no bad guys. I haven't encountered anybody.
Hades is a bad guy.
But yeah, he's not. As we're seeing it, it's like he's not doing it just because I'm a bad guy and I don't want you to do what you want to do. It's more just like, I have a reason for this. You're gonna have to find out those reasons, even if they're not entirely justified. That's the part you got to find out.
So, yeah. What else did I want to say? Oh, I want to say this game is the king of. Oh God, just one more game, one more round. Let me try it one more time.
Even after beating it, I just was like, okay, I'm gonna stop for the day. I'm gonna go to 3 houses because I need to do my Golden Deer route.
Yeah.
But it's so easy to just walk through that door and
the
just
first
go right
time
again.
I beat Hades, it was an accident, because it was a late night. I was in the throes of one of those. I'll do one more and then go to bed.
Yeah.
You know what? That actually didn't take so long. I'll do one more and I'll go to bed. And then it was like, okay, this is my last one. I have to go to bed because I open at work in the morning. I have to go to bed after this. I played it. I beat him. And then just instinctually, off the high of beating him, I started another run and got 7 rooms in before I was like, wait a minute, I have to go to bed. What am I doing?
I gotta stop.
So it just, oh man, it's just addicting gameplay that's just injected into your veins in the best ways. Oh my God, I fucking love Hades.
Now, I have to mention that if you have a Switch, that is the superior place to play it.
Is it not on PC?
I mean, it's great on PC, but one of the easy things is the accessibility this game brings.
Oh,
so often,
this game begs to be taken on the go.
And you can just, there were so many times where I was like, I'm going to go play Hades, and I pressed it, the on button, it's like, oh, there I was in that room that I had just completed.
Yep.
Time to just go back at it. It's so easy to jump right in, even without playing on the Switch, and the Switch just makes that a lot easier.
Yeah.
And the combat itself is very fun because you have a bunch of different weapons you have access to.
Yep.
They all operate differently.
And they all have different subtypes.
Yeah, that you upgrade.
That you can unlock and upgrade and make more powerful so that you can
Yes.
really find your optimal build, and it's just such a phenomenal game.
And even after you beat the run for the first time, rather than just going through it again as it's already been made up until this point, they introduce a system that rewards you for taking on extra challenges on these next runs to get more upgrade materials.
It's just constant
materials that do things in the hub area.
Pure, what can we do to make a twist on this, what is really a 30-minute game? How can we twist it in ways to make it just infinitely replayable?
Yeah. And I love, obviously we said the characters were good, and they actually put work into creating them. That rings true for not only just why the characters are doing what they're doing, but both in terms of character design, which is fantastic.
The art is beautiful in this game.
The art is beautiful, which lends to that character design. And the voice acting is great as well. You know,
it's pretty solid.
I never see a text box that pops up, and I'm never like, I'm going to read through this so I can just skip it because I'm trying to get through all this dialogue.
It's always let me wait for the actor to finish the line.
Yeah, and like, okay, you did
Very
it.
much so.
Next one.
I also want to say, the game is 30 minutes long, and it's super repetitive, but like, not in a bad way.
No.
It's just in the matter of like, just the nature of the game, having to replay it again and again and again and again. It's impressive to me how good the music is. It never gets old.
Yes.
I'm never tired of the bum 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 bum.
Yeah.
Like, it's just every time that those notes hit, I'm like, yes, let's go. Or that starting battle theme at the beginning where you first start your run, that like, oh, it's so good every time, and I'm like, man, let's go fuck up some gods real quick. Like, let's do this. But yeah, Hades is one of the best games of this year, and it's one of the best games I've ever played.
I think I'm going to go home and play it later tonight.
Maybe indeed.
I have to beat my runs. I have to
Now,
get more
Connor.
nectar.
2 is already Hades, and we've been talking about it, so I
have.
think it's safe to say to move on to number 1.
Number 1, the big number
Now, number 1 is going to be a surprise to nobody. And I'm going to rant a little bit here, so I'm just going to need you to let me go.
You can go. Let me step away from the mic for a little bit, lean back in my chair.
just let me go.
And not make eye contact.
So to a surprise to nobody, my number 1 game of this year is Last of Us Part 2. I think Last of Us Part 2 is a absolute masterpiece in every way. I don't think there is a better game. Like, I don't think there's a game that has tried to elevate the medium of video games more since The Last of Us Part 1. And I think this one is way bolder and takes way grander steps than the first one takes. And there's so much conversation around this game, and we've talked about this game so much that it almost disappoints me how little is actually said about what the game has to say. It so very often gets minimized or what is the word I'm looking for?
Swept aside?
Yeah, to that effect.
Disregarded.
Disregarded as like it's just a game about hate and revenge, and that's all it's. I already know not to take revenge on people, but we don't talk about how, those themes are there, and the game has a lot to say about that, but it also has a lot to say about love and grief and what it is to even feel those emotions. The game has so much to fucking say about just the complexity of human nature, and nobody gives it that time and that space because it's just this constant conversation of, oh, well, they killed one of my favorite characters, and then they replaced them with blah, 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 blah. Like, we spend so much time focused on what we've lost that we totally ignore what we've gained. Which is ironic, because that is the general main theme of the game in the first place. We've lost someone we care about to the point to where we ignore and we push away and we forget about these great relationships that we have gained and that we have in our daily lives and people who care about us. And we're so focused on our own hate and our own despair and our own fucking selfishness that we can't even look beyond ourselves and say, hey, but I do have this going for me. I've got a great life at home. I live in this great place. I'm with the person who I love every day. And this thing, it does bother me, but as soon as I get past that and I move on, I'm going to find true peace. The game has so much to say about peace. The idea of peace, being at peace with yourself, being at peace with your enemies. And all of that just gets fucking ignored on the idea that, oh, they took something from me that I really liked. No, they didn't take anything from you. Life just played out, and that's what it is. Life fucking sucks sometimes, and it hurts, and you lose things that you care about. And you lose. Or you just generally lose. And you don't win. And that happens. And to my knowledge, this is the first real game to where you just lose. Now, you lose in like Final Fantasy VI. You lose. But at the end of the day, you still go back and you beat the bad guy. And you still quote unquote win and you feel all great. This is a game that says, hey, there are no heroes in this story. There is no hero of this story. There's simply you and what you choose to do. And that level of choosing what to do is different for every person. And we don't give enough credit to just how nuanced this fucking story is and how I think necessary it is in the times that we're in, where we're just constantly attacking each other and belittling each other for things that have no consequences to us. And sure, they may have consequences to other people, and we should fight for those people, but never lose sight of what is important. And that is what the journey of Ellie is in The Last of Us 2. She loses sight of what's important. That is what the results of that journey are seen in the dual narrative that happens with Abby. And it's so brilliantly done that I don't understand how anybody can look at this story and dislike it or hate it or think that it's broken and doesn't work or it's bad storytelling. You are a fucking moron if you think that.
Kevin thinks I'm a moron.
If you just didn't connect, if you got it and you just didn't connect with it and you were like, it didn't resonate with me. That's fine. That's a personal opinion. That works. But to say that like there's plot holes in this game, fucking you're a moron who's reaching for straws because you're angry. And the game is also supposed to make you angry. There's no game that intentionally fills its player with disgust. There's no game that pushes its player to feel emotions like this. These bitter, angry, these hateful emotions. And then there's no game that makes your player feel that and then asks you why you feel that. There's no, to my knowledge, there's no game that makes you feel like that. There's not been one in modern times, at least, and anything before, we'll say PS2 era, because that's the era where I fell in love with gaming. Any era before that, the technical level of games in terms of their presentations weren't up to snuff enough to tell this type of story. That's why all the Final Fantasy games, I keep coming to that because I'm playing Final Fantasy VI right now, they're almost cartoonish in their presentation. Or they can't go more than a few minutes without cracking a joke. Or they can't go more than a few minutes than making their silly little sprite characters, puppeteering their sprite characters to make like a funny little joke. This game, I think, is the boldest and most elevating game to the medium since fucking Final Fantasy VII, since Metal Gear Solid 2, since Metal Gear Solid 1, and especially since the first Last of Us game. And that's not even to mention, that's all thematic elements. That's all what it has to say about themes and the world we're living in. We're not this game is one of the most perfect stealth games I've played since Metal Gear Solid 5. Like, the constant tension and fear and anxiety that it induces in its moment-to-moment gameplay while you're hiding from an enemy that is outnumbering you, and you know that I'm down to my last shotgun shell. I've got 3 bullets in my pistol and 1 in my rifle. I do not have enough ammo to fight a dozen guys. But there's a dozen guys and 3 dogs looking for me, and they're going to find me. How am I going to figure this out? What can I do to maneuver my way and to manipulate this AI system, which is brilliant, a brilliant technical AI system, which you talked about when you talked about it. On a technical level, this game is phenomenal. It looks beautiful. It sounds beautiful. The level of dynamic range between its sounds and environments and how those things blend together is untouchable. And it all happened on a fucking PlayStation 4. Fuck you.
I thought you were going to say fuck you, Cyberpunk.
Well, just fuck you, anyone in general. Oh, you're gonna get that. Like, fuck you. No, this is the most beautiful, best-looking game ever. Sure, it only runs at 30 frames per second, but...
Hey, no flower petals in that game. It's all dark, moody buildings. Ghost of Tsushima had flower
but
petals.
It looks great. It's the best dark, moody buildings I've ever seen in my life.
Bloodborne.
Nah. This game looks better than Bloodborne. This game looks way better than Bloodborne. Bloodborne is muddy.
Bloodborne is amazing.
Bloodborne is muddy.
It is Victorian. Getting away from your
But no, and just the tension in moment-to-moment gameplay, and that's not even talking about the evolution of the infected in this game. Sure, it's all mostly the same types with a new type added, but clickers work differently now than they worked in the last game. And if you can't pick up on that, you're not paying attention. Like, clickers hear way more than they used to, and and runners dodge, like, they move in different ways now. It's just different now, and it's better, and it's elevated. There's more nuance to how those infected types work. And there's more nuance to, like, I don't even fully understand what it takes for a dog to pick up on my scent. And I've played the game twice, two and a quarter times. And every time I go, okay, is that dog going to follow me to this trap that I've laid? No, it didn't. Why didn't it? Fuck. Oh, shit. Wait, no, why is it going now? Oh, fuck. God damn it. I got to move. Like, just the constant, like, evolution in Naughty Dog and the way they make their games. They are just master storytellers. They are masters at presentation and realizing the world that they are creating. I think The Last of Us 2 is one of the best crafted worlds in video games. Everything makes sense. Everything belongs. Everything that's in there is in there for a purpose. And, you know, even though the game, I think, is super long, and maybe even too long, there is nothing in that game without purpose. There's no bloat to the game. It's just long, but there's no bloat. You understand what I mean by that?
I do, and I don't agree.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Because it just, everything they set up for that is such a huge risk. They have so many huge risks in this game. That are, like, rivaled only by Metal Gear Solid 2, which they're so blatantly ripping off in their story structure. In terms of, like...
Yeah, I know. I was like, is it really equivalent? Because you get time with both characters equally in Last of Us.
Which is why I think it's not which is why I think people are more accepting of this game than they were of Metal Gear Solid 2 at launch. But, like, look how we talk about Metal Gear Solid 2 now. Now, Metal Gear Solid 2 is one of the most ambitious, one of the most creative, and one of the most necessary games in terms of storytelling that we've encountered. Like, now, people love Metal Gear Solid 2. And, I mean, it also helps that Kojima predicted the future with that one. But, and his rambling nonsense turned out to be not so rambling nonsense.
Spying,
the government, suppression of information. Mm-hmm. He was right, but that's beside the point. I just, in the moment and in this year, it felt like everybody hated on this game for such trivial reasons. And I think history and I think time will give this game its proper dues. And I think in 10 years, I think we're just going to be able to look back on a decade of games and say, none of this would be possible if Last of Us 2 didn't do what it did. Whether you loved it, whether you just kind of liked it, whether you hated it. There are going to be games in the future that look at this game and take notes. And they will make choices, and they will explore different storytelling tropes, and they will explore different emotions in which they can inflict on the player. And, dude, maybe not God of War Ragnarok, but, like, the one after that, whatever Cory Barlog and Santa Monica Studios does after that, holy fuck, that game is going to be legendary. Mm-hmm. And it wouldn't be without this game.
That's an analysis.
I feel like I had such a bar with that. We focus so much on what we've lost that we don't see what we've gained.
You had a stride. You had a stride there. You reached that stride.
That was a bar. Anyways. Connor.
Yes.
Number one
pick. My number one pick is Final Fantasy VII Remake. Now, I had told you at the beginning of this year, but honestly, I actually said it about Cyberpunk, about no matter how good that game would have been.
No, you said it about Last of Us 2. Or you said it about Last of Us Part 2 as well.
I did say that about that as well.
You were like even because we were in the mix of the leaks, and you were like, yeah, I'm not happy about where these leaks are going. Turns out those leaks were goddamn nothing.
Yeah. I didn't like the game for other reasons, but
for other reasons.
Nothing related to the leaks.
But you were like, even if Last of Us 2 comes out and is a masterpiece, it can't beat Final Fantasy.
Same with Cyberpunk. It's now I will admit I did tell you that time the reason why is because of the nostalgia that I have for that. You know,
nostalgia plays a huge part in that game.
Plays a major.
The game is a fan of itself.
It's obviously a fan of itself. I mean, the whole big ballsy thing that they do at the end is out of a result of a fan of itself.
To be fair, you had told me this game was going to be your number one before you even got to that end.
Yeah.
I watched you play the end that day, and your mind was fucking blown.
Yeah, I was going a little bit crazy there. So, there's so much I want to talk about the ending, but for those of you that haven't played the original Final Fantasy VII and then hopefully play the remake, I'm not going to get into that.
Sure.
You know, as you said, it was ambitious, and it may or may not pay off. Who really cares? It's ambitious in a way that I like. But going beyond that part, it is able to capture the essence of the original Midgar section of Final Fantasy VII, which is something that's kind of, I forget every now and again, that this is just a small smidgen of the original Final Fantasy VII.
Well, I think that's because the Midgar section of the original is arguably the best part of the game.
It is a good part of the game. I can't say for certain if it is, because it's been a while. Probably.
I mean, it's the part of the game that is outside of the moment. It's like the most iconic part of the game, I would say. That opening is super iconic.
Oh, amazingly. And it's an amazing part of the game. Probably one of the best.
Yeah.
Okay, it's probably the best part of the game.
Midgar is really fucking good.
But that aside, well, I guess that in addition to this, it is able to recreate that world in a more breathing, living way and a more in-depth way. Because as good as that segment was, it wasn't overall that large a part of the original Final Fantasy VII, versus now it's however long it took you to beat the game, 30 hours or whatever.
Something like that.
Yeah, something around that length. It just is amazing. Every single part that I visited, that I had experienced in the last game, was recreated in spectacular fashion, while not going too far. So, for example, something like Night City. Night City?
That's the city in Cyberpunk.
It is.
What are you looking
for?
The
fucking the market, the hooker
night
place.
Night market. Not night market. Is it night market?
It is something generic. It is something
Wall market.
Wall market. You know, they were able to recreate that, but keep it the same size, relatively the same size, but translating it into a 3D version of itself that allows you to traverse those grimy alleyways and see all the bright lights and the great vendors. And it really is just a great way to present the city of Midgar.
Yeah.
You know, that in addition to places like when you're traveling in the turbines or the slums or the streets, like the residential section.
Sure.
You know, which, speaking of the residential section that you see in the remake, they add things into this game, such as that residential area, and developing characters like Jesse.
They really do a great job of building out the world of Final Fantasy VII that wasn't there in the original game because it couldn't be.
Yes.
To my memory, Aerith's house in the original game is just like a house, like just randomly in the middle of nowhere. I could be wrong. No, it might be in a town.
It's on the outskirts of that town, and it's very beautiful.
Yeah.
If that's what you mean.
But in 7 Remake, it's a full town. And yeah, the house is outside the town.
Yeah.
But it's like...
Oh, yeah.
It's part of that town.
Yeah. I can't remember, honestly, now that you mentioned it.
I feel like that house is just out in the middle of nowhere.
It might be. It's been a while. But either way, like, that becomes an important area of the Midgar section in and of itself. Honestly, a hub area.
Yep.
Because you constantly go back to it. It's beautiful, by the way. But, you know, something like that expands upon the idea that this game is larger than its, you know, the original version of it was. Because of how much time you spent in this one section.
You don't feel like this game is bloated as fuck?
No.
I do.
Not at all.
I do.
I never thought for a second I was like, oh, this is too much.
That haunted railroad section, like, why is that there?
I think it was that's bad placement. I don't think it was...
I think the pacing of the game is pretty bad.
I think the pacing was worst at that point, but I don't think the whole entire pacing of the game itself was that bad. There was...
Maybe.
You know, but regardless, you know, even if that is a criticism.
I just feel like they probably should have shaved 5 to 10 hours off of this game.
I'm happy it was the amount that they did.
I'm going to go 5. Close to 5.
This was... 5. If we're talking about time...
The game's like 42 hours long, I want to say, was what my time clock was.
Okay, it's probably that.
It was something like that. I could have gone with 5 hours less of that.
You see, I thought it was amazing, because this game is one of the only games that I played, and I finished it, and I was like, man, I feel sad now that it's not more of it left for me to experience.
Yeah.
Which
There's so much story that they still have to get through. And
yes.
How are they going to do it? Oh my god!
How are they
going to do
excited. It? Yeah. The combat system is very fun. It's good they moved away from the I'm going to stand in one place and find out what tactic I want to use and hit that guy and then have this other person hit that guy. It was very dynamic. You're running around. You still have those strategic elements of the Final Fantasy VII games where you got to go into that little slow motion pause down time and choose what spells you want people to use. If they have a limit break, to use that. But the combat's amazing. It went in the direction it needed to go, and as you were saying, something like Knights of the Old Republic should have a system like this, but other games should have it as well. Something like Final Fantasy 16, if it went in this same direction, I wouldn't be opposed whatsoever, especially because that'd be an improvement from Final Fantasy 15's combat, which can seem kind of, I'm pressing the same 2 buttons over and over again, hit and dodge. But, beyond that, I do find the characters very, very charming, and an improvement because they spent a lot more time on them. Like I was going to go into before, but I think I kind of lost track of it. Specifically characters were developed a lot more, and we're going to see more out of some characters that aren't supposed to be in the game past the point where we are. Not going into spoilers, but everything is what I wanted out of a Final Fantasy VII remake. What?
20-year-old spoilers.
20-year-old spoiler. Well, okay, yeah. 3 characters that died in the original game are not going to be possibly dead.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
I see what you're saying.
No, those 3 characters are specific.
Listen, those 3 characters are so irrelevant in the original game that
irrelevant.
I forgot who you were talking about.
But then this one,
somehow in the remake they make them relevant.
They make them relevant and they make them good, and they use them also to develop some other parts of Midgar, like the residential section I was talking about more. All in all, this takes a game that was made 20 years ago, adds stuff onto it, and modernizes it to make me really excited to see what they're going to do with the rest of the adaptation of Final Fantasy VII, both in terms of story and in terms of the world. But
excited. This
is one of the reasons why this is my favorite game of the year.
Yeah. Final Fantasy VII is a great game.
Well, you put it on your number 3.
Yeah, it's at my number 3. And as a first experience into the world of Final Fantasy VII, I just fell down a rabbit hole with that shit.
Yeah, you played the 7th one right after that.
Yeah. I played the original. I'm playing 6 now because I was so in love with what 7 was. I want to find out what people generally, it seems from the outside looking in, people say 6 is the best of the franchise.
It really like a lot of Final Fantasy fans say that. People who played all the games.
Yeah.
Seems like commercially, Final Fantasy VII is still more popular, which is why
seven is by far the most popular of the series, but people who play the game say 6 is the best. So. I'm in the process of getting through that. Do you like 6 or 7 more?
I like 7 more, but I love 6.
Oh,
6 is amazing.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Anyways, so those are our top 10s of 2020. It was a great year.
Yeah, it was a good
great year. Some phenomenal games.
Now,
put some piece of shit fucking Demon Girl game over.
It has them in there, dude. Now, that being said, how long was this episode?
It was about an hour and 42 minutes, 43 probably by the time we're done with the outro here.
Longer than I thought it would be.
It is indeed. Overall, I couldn't be. I don't know if I could be happier with the way games turned out this year. Well, I could if Cyberpunk had fucking done what it was supposed to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall, great year. I'm excited for the games we still have coming next year and the years after that. And overall, it's a good time to be a gamer, bro.
Hell, if we should be doing this in the next year, maybe see what we got our next top games of 2021 are going to be.
2021. Anyways.
A lot to look forward to.
Until then, this has been episode 24 of the Two Penny Gamescast. Once again, you can catch us Mondays, 8 a.m., SoundCloud, Spotify, and YouTube. Hit the likes, hit the subscribes, hit the bells, rate us, help us get out there to the good people. But until next week, Connor, say bye to the people.